here. I'd like to thank you guys for joining us this evening. One of the best parts about being in Vancouver is the people, and to have this gala again, I've been here for 4 years, to have everybody back here means a lot to us. So, we're happy to have everybody back in the same room. And another great thing about being a Canuck is spending the time with the families and all of the children in the community. So, we recognize what that means to us here. And also, your fans, we recognize how much you guys do for us, and it's a privilege for us to give back anytime we get a chance. So thank you guys.
You got yours? I agree with everything that Miller said. Just gonna keep it simple. Your donations tonight will help us ensure that these kids have access to programs, services, and care that they need to thrive.
Please join us in welcoming Karina and Jordan Letcher as they share their story. Thank you.
What a beautiful room of support. Thank you so much to the Canucks for Kids Fund for giving us this space for us to share our story. Everyone in this room has unique gifts and talents. You could be amazing at anything from carpentry to corporate sales, perhaps even have the hardest shot at an all-star game. But sometimes you find yourself in a place where you know you're unqualified. As an experienced father of 5 boys, I never felt more inadequate or unprepared than the day I learned that one of my sons would face years of suffering and pass away at a young age. Tonight, I'm honored to represent Canuck Place Children's Hospice, a beneficiary of the Canucks for Kids Fund, and I'm honored to represent my son, Heston. Heston was right in the middle of our 5 boys, having 2 older brothers and 2 younger brothers who are identical twins. Heston had the purest, brightest eyes, and when he laughed, his whole body would laugh. He was big for his age, but he was one of the sweetest, gentlest souls you would ever meet. When Heston was just 3 years old, he was diagnosed with a rare terminal disease called Sanfilippo syndrome. Our sweet boy would regress physically and mentally, losing his ability to speak, eat, and walk. His body would slowly lose every function until he would ultimately pass away. Our world was shattered. And just like that, we were one of those different families, the family that has a child with a terminal disease, the family that everyone talks about, but that is so awkward to talk to. But there was one place where we did not feel alone or isolated: Canuck Place Children's Hospice. They are there every step of the journey, providing in-house clinical care 24 hours a day, pain and symptom management, counseling, family respite, recreation therapy, music therapy, education and art, a 24-hour clinical care line, end-of-life care, and bereavement services. But more than just a list, I would love to share with you an example of what these services look like in action. Last June, Heston's health had declined to the point that we knew the end was near. We live in Victoria, but our hope was for Heston to have his final days at Canuck Place. We had been in frequent contact by phone with his clinical care team, and it was determined that it was our time for our final journey. After an anxious ferry ride, we finally made it to Canuck Place. Heston was so fragile that the nurses wheeled out the bed right to our van. I remember seeing the sun shining on his face as I lowered him into the bed, and it was the last time that I carried him. Let me share just a few of the meaningful moments we experienced throughout Heston's final days. Hearing music coming from his room and there was Karen, the music therapist, singing a sweet song to Heston. Seeing Blair, a volunteer who mirrored the same gentleness as Heston, quietly reading him a story. The reassuring knowledge of Canuck Place doctor Peter Louis, who was at our first introduction to Canuck Place, was now there at the end, overseeing care to make sure Heston's final days were as comfortable as possible. Finn, who had come to know our family well, came to visit Heston one last time. He is so thoughtful in the way he interacts with the Canuck Place kids and their siblings. Laura, the recreational therapist, lovingly helped our family record Heston's heartbeat in a stuffed animal. It is so special, it still plays his heartbeat when you squeeze it. Jenny, the nurse who was there for Heston's last breath. She gently monitored his final moments while being sensitive to give our family time and space. Roxy, one of the Canuck Place chefs, who had prepared so many tasty meals for our family, gave us one last box of the famous Canuck Place cookies to go. A final hug with Gabrielle, a fixture at the front desk of the hospice, who had grown to love our family, and Heston as well. A phone call from Natasha, the counselor, the moment we arrived back home, to make sure we knew that they would continue to be there to support our family. These are the type of personal details that make Canuck Place the home of exceptional care. Our family, and most importantly, our sweet boy, received the best of care to the end. We have nothing but gratitude for everything we received.
As a mom of a boy that died from a terminal disease, I can attest from experience that there are two dates that stand out as the most heartbreaking in our journey. The day Heston was diagnosed and the day he took his last breath. These will forever be monumental for us. But what I have also noticed and experienced over the past 9 years was how incredibly difficult the regular days, months, and years were in between. The unknowns, the stress, the sheer heaviness we faced each and every day was a lot. How do you make the most of the time you have left without feeling overwhelmed by the work that caring for your child demands? How do you continue to live knowing your son is dying? This is where Canuck Place and the Canucks for Kids Fund shine. It was December 2015, and our family just happened to be at Canuck Place for a respite stay when the famous players of the Canucks West Coast Express line came for a visit to the house. They were being honored that evening at the Canucks game and had set aside time in their schedule to decorate gingerbread houses with the families staying at Canuck Place. I recall the surreal feeling of seeing Todd Bertuzzi at one table with a family, Marcus Naslin with another, and Brendan Morrison and his wonderful family with us. Brendan's daughters were helping Heston, Brendan was helping our twins, Finn was getting into mischief tossing candy. It felt so normal and so unbelievable all at the same time. Later that day, Jordan and I were given tickets to the Canucks game where these players were being honored in the opening ceremony. I remember being so excited about the experiences we had that day that I couldn't help but share with the fellow fan beside me that we had decorated gingerbread houses with those players earlier that day. The man gave me a polite response, the kind that clearly showed he didn't believe me. Then during the intermission, they interviewed Marcus Naslin and showed a video on the Jumbotron of our time at Canuck Place earlier. I pointed to the Jumbotron with excitement and said, "There are my boys." The fan looked with awe and said, "Wow, you weren't kidding. You really did decorate gingerbread houses with them." We had experienced the unbelievable. I learned a valuable lesson that day. I learned that in spite of the heaviness of Heston's diagnosis and the busyness of caring for our 5 boys, our family could still make amazing memories. This lesson would prove to be invaluable in the years ahead. Because of the generosity of this community, Canuck Place and the Canucks for Kids Fund is able to provide these kinds of opportunities and incredible, hopeful experiences for families like ours. Our family loves hockey. We love this team. What we love even more is how you bring hope to families like ours who really, really need it. You bring us hope not because you won the game, but because you care about the community we belong to, the community of Canuck Place families. Through Canuck Place and the Canucks for Kids Fund, we participated in pumpkin carvings with players, Canuck Place family skates at Rogers Arena, and attended games with all of our boys. My first live Canucks game was generously donated to Canuck Place by Henrik Sedin. I felt so special and valued that day. Our family treasures the last game Heston attended. It was the Sedin Legacy game. Heston was joined by his twin brothers on the ice for the pre-game puck drop ceremony, once again experiencing the unbelievable. Did you know that Canucks for Kids Fund have been a supporter of Canuck Place Children's Hospice for almost 30 years? 3 decades of making a difference for children and families across BC, and almost a decade of support for Heston and our family. And there are more families just like ours that need your support. These are the parents you are helping tonight. You are giving these families a lifeline of care and making memories at Canuck Place. The family memories we made through Canuck Place and Canucks for Kids Fund are many, and we are forever grateful for them. These special experiences with Vancouver Canuck players are so ingrained in our life with Heston. When we cheer for you, we are cheering for our memories of him too. We will never stop cheering for this team. I would like to share our gratitude to everyone here tonight. Thank you for supporting Heston's journey at Canuck Place and all the families in the future who will need pediatric palliative care. We love how you give. Thank you.